And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. All right, our next story takes us to our neighbors in the north there in Canada. Live picture there. Take a look at this over Edmonton in Alberta. Let's talk about the Air Canada flight attendant strike here. Air Canada saying it will gradually restart operations after reaching an agreement early yesterday with the union for 10,000 flight attendants to end a strike that disrupted the travel plans of hundreds of thousands of Canadian passengers here. Now, the agreement came after Canada's biggest airline and the union resumed talks late Monday for the first time since the strike began over the weekend, affecting about 130,000 travelers a day at the peak of the summer travel season. Air Canada said flights will start resuming at 4 p.m. Eastern time. That was yesterday. So flight attendants, they walked off the job early Saturday after turning down the airline's request to enter into government-directed arbitration. That would have allowed a third-party mediator to decide the terms of a deal here. So I want to put this up from Air Canada, saying today's operations resumption summary. We returned 234 Air Canada Rouge aircraft to the skies, saying they flew almost 80% of our full network schedule and operated almost 900 flights system-wide here. So let's bring into the conversation right now John Gradek, a faculty lecturer there at Mcgill University. He knows all about this. He joins me. John, good to see you, and happy Wednesday. So did you anticipate that this would be wrapped up by, last night? Or did you anticipate it was going to go well into this next weekend? It's basically over, right?
Well, the strike's over. Of course, everybody's back to work. I think the question right now is turning up all of Air Canada's 250 airplanes. They were repatriated back to Canada before the strike happened. So Saturday morning, these airplanes were parked in various locations across Canada, and those airplanes now have to be serviced and inspected, and then turned back into service and put back in the air. They have, Air Canada's schedule is quite extensive, over 160 destinations, everything from Australia to China to Peru to India. And, what you have to make sure that when you fly these airplanes to those locations, you have the crews available to bring the airplane back. So that's the biggest element of logistics, is to make sure that when the airplanes are deployed to those locations, crews are available and ready to take that airplane back to Canada.
John, how disruptive was this for Canadian air travelers? I mean, give us a sense. How disruptive, how massive on a scale was it?
Air Canada typically flies 130,000 passengers a day. But this airline was shut down as of Saturday, so with 3 full days of shutdown. So that's 400,000 passengers. They had started taking some flights out the Thursday and Friday before the strike. So at last count, until Tuesday morning, we were looking at somewhere in the range of 600,000 trips that were been interrupted. And we're probably going to get another 100,000 between now and the time the airline's fully deployed. So this is a massive rescue effort that has to be undertaken to bring these passengers home. And it's not easy on commercial aircraft. This is the peak of the peak. This is August. And people are coming back to school. Kids are finishing vacations. Parents want to do one last trip before school starts. So planes are full. So those 650,000 passengers are going to have to get seats somehow, some way over the next 10 days to bring them home.
So, John, what were the flight attendants asking for? I mean, what were their demands? And what leverage did they have other than starting the strike?
The flight attendants had come off a 10-year contract with Air Canada, which is a long time. Very rarely would you see that length of a contract. And in that contract, they had minimal increases per year, somewhere in a range of about 2% a year. So over the life of that contract, the salaries did not keep up with inflation for the most part, particularly in places like Toronto and Vancouver, where most of these flight attendants are based. So there was a significant amount of catch-up that was required in this contract to make the employees whole and give the employees in those cities a living wage. And that's one issue of wages. The other one was ground pay, which is now part of the the current wave of airlines looking to expand the payday for flight attendants to ensure that those that are on an hourly wage and the hours are based on the aircraft being dispatched and flown. They want to make sure that they were also being remunerated for the work that they do prior to the doors closing and after the doors are open. And that's what they were doing now with this contract.
So, John, an interesting wrinkle in all of this, the Canadian Industrial Relations Board early on declared the strike illegal. Now, did that give the airline, the carrier, some leverage over these striking flight attendants? And why did they declare it illegal?
Yeah, well, the reference to bringing this to the CIRB, the Industrial Relations Board, has been a tactic that companies have been using to, in fact, get to closure on negotiations. And it's a very rarely used piece of legislature we have in Canada that allows the Minister of Labor or Minister of Jobs in this case, to in fact look at referring it to the CIRB, automatically go to binding arbitration, cut off the negotiations, and no strikes, no nothing, no votes, and the airline keeps operating, or the company keeps operating. So they've used it a few times, about 5 or 6 times in the last 2 years, to basically cut off negotiations and to give management, a free ride in negotiations. So management didn't really have to negotiate. They knew they were going to go to the CIRB, and Bob's your uncle. There's no negotiations. And so it was really a tactic that Air Canada employed this time around. And the union basically said, we're not going to respect that back to work order by the CIRB. We're going to stay on strike. Thank you very much. And there were threats of jail time, threats of fines and everything else. And the union said, this is not going to happen. So the only way this thing got settled on Tuesday morning is back to the negotiating table, which was not Air Canada's preferred tactic, but they didn't have much choice. With a mediator, and after 8.5 hours, magically we have an agreement.
All right, we'll leave it at that. John Gradek, thanks so much. Good to see you. Talk soon.
Nice talking to you. Take care.
All right, in the meantime, also, we are hearing from Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on the resolution of this strike, posting on X today, saying, I'm relieved that Air Canada and the Canadian Union of Public Employees have reached a tentative agreement early this morning. It's my hope that this will ensure flight attendants are compensated fairly at all times, while ending disruption for hundreds of thousands of Canadian families, workers, and visitors to Canada. Back out live there to Edmonton in Alberta. We'll see you